My name's Mark. I'm one of the pastors at Trillium. This week we're looking at the story of Jesus' birth through Joseph's eyes. In a sense, the Gospel of Matthew focuses on the story from Joseph's perspective. Now we're more familiar with the story from Mary's perspective in the Gospel of Luke. Luke's version is the most popular. It's the story of the no room in the inn and the manger and the angels singing in the sky and the shepherds and all those sort of things. They're not found in the Gospel of Matthew. Matthew's version is much leaner and focuses on Joseph's struggle to come to terms with Mary's pregnancy. And it's interesting how often Joseph gets left out of the story. And I think that we need to bring him back in because he has an important role to play in the total telling of the birth of Jesus. A couple of weeks ago, I had a woman come into my office and tell me with the biggest smile on her face, with a sense of joy in her face, that she had just gotten a diagnosis for Hodgkin's lymphoma. And I'm sitting there kind of looking at her going, I don't think I've ever seen a person filled with joy over a specific cancer diagnosis before. And of course, you need to know that about 2 months before, or maybe 3 months before, she had told me that she thought she might have cancer and had to get some testing done for it. And then maybe 6 weeks before I had had that meeting with her, she had come and told me that she had got the cancer diagnosis. She had cancer, but they didn't know what type it was. And now she was in my office rejoicing the fact that she had Hodgkin's lymphoma. Because of all the cancer she could have, that was the most benign type. And it got me thinking about the fact that, it's amazing how when our perspectives change, we re-understand or reinterpret the information in our lives. I mean, had she been told 6 weeks earlier that she had Hodgkin's lymphoma when they specified the fact that she did have cancer, she would have been devastated by that news. Yet 6 weeks later, when she's wrestling with all the other possibilities, Hodgkin's lymphoma seems like a pretty good option for her. There's no guarantees, but it's certainly treatable. And I'm looking at the story of Joseph. Joseph is engaged to Mary. He wants to have her as his wife. He has all these wonderful plans for them as a couple. He's got great big plans. There's some expectations about how life is going to unfold for him when all of a sudden he discovers that she is pregnant. And he knows he's not the father. And it seems pretty cast in stone what he needs to do because he's not going to stay with a woman who's sleeping around on him. That just can't be accepted. And so he begins the process of figuring out how to end the engagement without bringing any unnecessary shame upon her. It says in the scriptures that he was chagrined but noble in spirit. Chagrin being he had his fingers burned by the circumstances, the deep disappointment, maybe even being devastated by the news. But at the same time, he is noble in spirit. That is, he has a magnanimous attitude towards people. He doesn't want to bring any unnecessary disrepute or pain upon Mary. He just simply wants to end the engagement. And he's sitting there trying to figure out how he can go about doing this when it says that he falls into a sleep and he dreams. Dreams are the ways in the Bible that God communicates with human beings. Or at least it's one of the more important ways that God communicates with human beings. It's a metaphor also for altered consciousness, of being in a different state of reality, being in that heightened state that we can hear the voice of God and we can hear that universal consciousness or the higher power communicating with us. And in that dream, he hears the angel telling him that in fact what he thought was bad news was actually really good news. In fact, Mary was carrying the divine child that was meant to save the whole world. And he had nothing to fear. Mary had always been loyal to him, had been totally responsible in her behaviors in the context of their engagement. And ironically, in the middle of being asleep, Joseph wakes up. He actually wakes up. And then when he physically wakes up, he realizes that his perspective has been utterly transformed by the conversation with the angel. And he rejoices in that moment and marries Mary. And the thing I take from that story is that so often in life, we want to write the final ending of a circumstance. We run into difficult challenges in life, or we have real pain in our life. And we want to finish off the story, but the scriptures keep reminding us over and over again that God loves taking bad news and making it into good news for us. And we should never be persuaded to write the last story of someone's life or some circumstance that we're dealing with or some situation that we're struggling with in our own selves, that God ultimately wants to take whatever is bad that's going on in our lives, wants to make it good for us. And we should rejoice in that confidence that the Lord is at play in our lives, that God goes with us wherever we go, and there's no way that God will ever abandon us to our circumstances, no matter how dire they seem. Even death is not a barrier to the Lord. And Joseph learned this good news. He learned how to see life from a different perspective because of the angelic visitation to him. Because he heard the voice of the angel speak these words, he saw the world differently. It says in the scriptures that, in fact, the old ancient prophecy of a child being born to a maiden would be fulfilled in the birth of Jesus to Mary. Emmanuel, God with us, would be his name. And of course, the truth is we want the divine child that lives in all people to wake up. Jesus comes into the world as the divine child to wake up all divine children that live inside of us. The divine child lives in each one of us, so we want to wake up to that truth so that we can know who we are and who we belong to and what purpose has been given to us and what power moves through us. So I'd invite you to take hold of this truth, that Emmanuel is a part of you. God goes with you. God is with us this day. And that no circumstance that you find yourself in is beyond the power of the creator of the universe. And know the truth about who you are this day. That even the most difficult news can ultimately be transformed by God into the best news you could possibly hear. So that's the peace I leave with you this day. That is the celebration, true celebration of Christmas. Go in that peace.